And I have. Welcome, everyone, to the Smartest Guy in the Room podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Dempsey. With me today, as always, my good pal, Matt Otis Smith. And today we have a special treat for everybody. This lovely lady named Kara Fernstrom, who is the host of her own podcast. It is called the Conquest of Bliss. Kara, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the way you introduce.
Kara, you're joining us from Canada, right?
Yes, Vancouver Island, so off the West Coast.
Island. Wow. You know, it's so Vancouver Island, where is that in relation to the city?
It's across the Georgia Strait. So it's like an hour and a half, 2-hour ferry ride across like toward Japan or whatever, toward Asia from Vancouver.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So Vancouver is like on my bucket list.
Yeah?
Yeah, I keep the weather of Vancouver on my phone for some reason. I want to go out there one day.
I don't want to jump ahead of anything, Kara, but I'd like to do that. I have been to Whistler, Blackcomb.
Okay.
And what I didn't see, and I have a quest in my life. I have multiple quests that I run concurrently. But one of them is to see a mountain cat. I don't know if you've listened. I don't know if you listened to our episode about the mountain cat.
Where Jerry lied.
Yeah, I was in Tahoe snowboarding with a bunch of my buddies, and I saw a dog basically running around like eating someone's garbage. And I came back and I told, we were drinking, obviously. I told all my buddies that I'd just seen a mountain cat running around. And it went from just a stupid lying story because I was bored into like almost a all-out fist fight amongst about 10 guys in the ski house. That's the kind of idiot I am.
That's fantastic. And you mean like a cougar, right? Like a mountain lion?
I mean, I'll take a chupacabra if I can get one, But yeah, sure. Or lynx, aren't they? Because
like a bobcat.
What is predominantly in your neck of the woods? Bobcat?
Well, actually, Vancouver Island has the most cougars, like the cat, not the sexy woman.
Right.
In all like density wise in all of North America, maybe, or Canada. I don't know. I don't want to start lying, but mountain lion.
But there's get right on. Get to it.
But there's a lot of cougars here on the island. I don't think there's bobcats, but it's actually really weird because we're right next to like the mainland and Vancouver and stuff. But we have all these different animals than they do there. Like there's snakes here. I never saw a snake on the mainland ever. Like, so, yeah, we have a lot of cougars. I've never heard of someone seeing a lynx, but there could be. What
about bear? Don't you have a lot of bear?
Yeah, there's lots of bears. Actually, I had a friend who was, sorry, this is super dark, and I'm just going to say it real quick and move past it. I had a friend who was killed by a black bear in northern BC.
That's awful.
Oh my God.
So it is super, super sad. But so there is a lot of bears, grizzly bears, black bears. We don't have like polar bears unless they're like the roller bears, maybe. The grizzlies and polar bears mixing.
Yeah, what's up with that? Because I'm glad you brought that up. Because what's this pizzly? I saw them calling them that versus, growler or growler, however you want to say it, seems like the more, I don't know, appropriate or cool way of saying it. Then you got these people calling it a pizzly, which,
I've never heard
again,
that.
I swear to God, I heard. See, now that's not a lie that I made up, although I would.
Yeah, pizzly makes it sound so like weak ass, but instead it's like two of the most badass animals in North America mixed together, and you're gonna call it a pizzly?
Exactly.
That doesn't make anyone afraid of it.
What is wrong with people?
So Jerry and I both grew up in Buffalo.
New York?
We're almost Canadian.
Yeah, we're Canadian adjacent.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time of our lives in Canada.
What's funny too is Buffalo, being the town it is, gets looked down upon by the snobby Torontonians. That's what you call them.
Well, everybody gets looked down upon by Torontonians. They're kind of assholes.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
Are you a Tragically Hip fan?
I'm not against them.
Like it.
A lot of Canadians I know don't. I'm like a giant hip fan. I even have gourd tattooed on my forearm, but
Oh goodness, that's commitment.
yeah. But I was just wondering.
I like oh, I can't turn my camera, but in the corner there's a Beatles. I like the Beatles.
Yeah, I see it.
I'm a
Are
Beatles
they from
gal.
Canada?
The Canadian invasion. No. Oh,
So
I
you
wish
live
they.
there. You live there with your boyfriend.
Mhm.
You have any? Who else do you live with? You have any
My
kids?
kitty Fergus.
Oh,
No, no, I have no children yet. Hopefully, but you know that's kind of one of those things we don't get to pick. So I just try to be cool along the ride and pretend I
but,
don't cry every month. You
but
know.
you have pets. What
Yeah.
if you're a musician? Because
Pardon?
that's our topic today.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a cat called Fergus. He is mostly black with a little white tuft, and we got him as a kitten, and he is rowdy and very cat-like. So you want to pet him. When you want to pet him, he runs away. When he wants pets, it doesn't matter if you're busy, very cat-like.
How old is Fergus?
I think like 7 months old, 8 months old.
Huh,
Just a baby.
just a baby. So
Hmm.
Otis, now were you a cat person growing up? I need to understand more about your own lineage as it relates to pets.
okay, so our topic today is pets, and it was a topic that Jerry proposed because correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry, but I don't think Jerry understands pets and the concept of pets.
Mm.
So he talked to me one day about talking about pets. And speaking of cats, I was not a cat person growing up. Yeah, I'm in my 50s now, and my whole life teetered on being very different than it turned out because of cats, and I'll explain. When I met my wife, she had 14 cats,
Oh goodness.
and I had never grown up around cats. I didn't really like cats, and I was allergic to cats, and very, very allergic to cats. So she almost did not date me because of cats, because she was far more loyal to cats than she was to the
Yeesh.
concept of me. So to answer your question, Jerry, no, I'm not. I was not a cat person, but I had no choice but to become one, and I went from zero cats in my life ever to all of a sudden having 14 cats and two dogs at age 25.
Hmm.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, I take a more pragmatic approach. I have two kids, and my daughter is very, I don't know what the right word is, but amazing. But mostly, she's very curious about life, and she's 7 years old. She's gone from daddy, I want cat, I want dog, I want a horse, and now she just wants to own her own zoo. Um, That's all she ever talks about. And I've almost given in a few times, but like, I live in suburbia where people just like acquire things without the sense of responsibility. And what I mean specifically is I have a lot of neighbors that have dogs that probably don't know the first thing about how to manage or, train or take care of a dog. And, to me, it's just one, I'm smart enough not to take on responsibility I don't want. So I just see it as like a to do, like a
Well, then you're
job.
not a real American.
Huh?
Then you're not a real American.
What does that mean? I don't understand.
Because we all take on responsibility we don't want or should have.
No, I'm lazy, but I'm smart enough and honest enough to admit it. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know.
We are all about keeping up with the Joneses, damn it.
Um, I don't know. So Kara, is having a cat to you, does it make you complete? Does it make you whole? Like, or could you know, like how important is this cat to you?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I mean, now that I have him, it's very important. But if I'd never gotten him, I would have been fine. Um,
What
like I
about when you were a
do.
little girl? Did you have these animals growing up?
Well, okay, so speaking of allergies, my dad is really allergic to cats and dogs, like pretty allergic to dogs as well. So I never had cats and dogs growing up. We had geckos and snakes and rats at one point. Well, we had rats to feed the snakes, but we also had rats before that, before we got the snakes as
Uh-huh.
pets. Um, and yeah, so like I never got to have like traditional pets. And then so when I became an adult, I got my first cat. I've only had black cats for some reason. Um, but I had my first cat, and then my last cat, Oscar, died just last July. And so I wasn't sure if I was ready, but my boyfriend and I just decided that we wanted one, and we went and we looked and saw Kitty that we fell in love with, and so we got him. But to answer your original question, like I said, when I've gone through periods without cats, like I'm okay. I can survive on other people's pets, you know?
Hmm. Mm.
How long did you have Oscar?
I had Oscar for 5 years, and then he got fatty liver disease that was not particularly treatable without him suffering. So,
What do you like about black cats?
well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely like the whole like mystical witchy woman thing, you know, she's in the superstition. But I also I just find that I'm drawn to them. I don't know. I just
What
really
color
like them.
eyes does it have?
All of them have had
Yeah, yellow.
yellowish eyes. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
no blue-eyed babies.
I've had a couple black cats in my life, and I actually think I've had all sorts of cats. I always found the black cats actually, at least the ones that I've had, to be most affectionate and the most interactive with people. I've had a lot of cats that have just been completely aloof. But the black cats I've had have always been the warmest. And I've got a black cat right now, Tilly, and I've got two cats. I had three dogs, but two of my dogs just died.
Oh.
So, so,
What do
but
you
yeah,
do? Here's my other question for both of you. Like, up until I'm a semi-retired Kara, just FYI, and but up until then, I worked my ass off for 25 years in corporate sales. So I mean, from again, pragmatically, I didn't have time for all this fun stuff. Like, I didn't even have time for a fish, which I get. That just I'm like a little factoid guy. I love stupid trivia.
Heck yeah.
Fish is the number one pet that Americans and probably Canadians uh, have. I can't speak for Canada though. Um, but they get lumped in. I'm no offense, you guys get lumped in as America Junior a lot. Does that offend you? And I hope it doesn't. But
Um, I wouldn't say that it offends me, but I mean, I think that we have our own views about our relationship to the States too. So I'm
oh
used to
God,
that.
yeah.
tell us, tell us.
Who
Well,
doesn't?
I mean, I think that a lot of Canadians sort of, okay, I feel like please don't be offended.
Oh,
That's all
trust me,
right.
I won't. I won't.
I
A
never
lot
get
of,
offended.
I think a lot of Canadians sort of think of America as their little brother that thinks they're really tough. You
Yeah.
know? So like we care about you guys and we really want the best for you, but you keep doing weird fucking shit and we just try to help you in whatever way we can and we let you bully us sometimes because you know you guys need the self-esteem and and like sort of that kind of view, I think.
Awesome.
That I think that is dead on. I feel like very Canadian. I don't know if that offends Jerry, but like all of my favorite bands, all of my favorite comedians, a lot of my favorite shows are Canadian. My daughter lives with a Canadian. I have a niece in Toronto. I grew up on the edge of Canada. It was a huge influence in my life. I'm a big hockey fan. I'm a big
I
Vancouver
mean,
Canucks
I
fan.
like Canadian beer, so I used to drink a
Mm.
lot of that back in the day.
Like Molson?
Oh God, yeah, Molson
Mm.
Canadian, Labatt's. I mean, all of it. Remember John Labatt's extra stock when they load up the alcohol content. We'd go over the border and you'd sneak it back in our cars, and it had like 6% alcohol, which like an American Budweiser, what's got like 2, maybe 3%. So
Really?
you could,
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is circa 1990 ish. I don't know if these things still exist today, but I mean, going from Buffalo, plus the drinking age was 19 when we were coming up, so we could go into Canada. go into bars and get drunk. And then we'd have to have at least somebody pretend to be sober to drive us back home. Remember those days, Matt?
Yes, I do.
So,
Never fell off the peace
I
fruit.
mean, Canadian beer is typically between 5 and I mean the gross stuff is like 8%, but typically it's 5%.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised to hear that it's 2 to 3.
So
no, but I personally never had any issues with Canadians I mean, I've traveled a bunch, and I've lived in different, like, I lived in Northern California, so Northern California people don't like Southern California people. I lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, and worked in Manhattan, and New York City people, they used to, like, when I try to meet chicks in the city, they'd always call me, like, Bridge and Tunnel Boy, because I lived in Hoboken, and, so there's always, like, and Jersey people are, like, New York City's angry little brother, so there's that. And you just get labeled with these things. I'll put it to you this way. I took my mom to Ireland. We're Irish of just heritage. So you go there and then they call you Plastic Patty because you're an American that thinks you're Irish. And I mean, I was like in this bar in Ireland, in Dublin, and I'm like going, to the urinal, doing my business. And this guy next to me is like, "Hey, mate, what's with all these fucking Americans here?" And I just look at him and I'm like, those people piss me off, dude. And he's like, "Oh, I thought you was one of us, lad." And I'm like, "No, I'm one of those idiot Americans. Don't worry about it." But then him and I became best buddies, and went to the bar and drank our faces off. So I feel like, what Socrates said it, like, I'm a citizen of the fucking world, and it's my, and then the Irish guy was like, "And it's my world." So I mean, that's, we can move on and get back to pets, but
Well,
now you know my whole philosophy.
I think that speaking of pets, in perceptions of people have of one another, I do think that Americans are so arrogant that they kind of do view Canadians as their pets, in a way. And I don't mean that as an insult to Canadians. I kind of mean that as an insult to Americans.
I'm offended.
Yeah, it feels more like an insult to Americans.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I mean, I know a lot of people who will like make certain cracks about Canada. I'm like, who don't really know what they're talking about. But my daughter keeps entertaining getting a dog, and it's dogs are a lot of work. I think they're a lot more work than cats.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a little bit. I don't want to say worried, but she keeps talking about getting a dog, and she's at an age where some of her friends are starting to get married. And I asked her, half jokingly, half worried, mainly about myself because I don't want to be a grandfather, if her need for a dog is somehow influenced by this inner desire to maybe have a kid. And thankfully she said no. But do you believe that there's something to that? Women, before they want kids, get pets?
I think that I'm honestly a pretty terrible person to ask because like I've wanted kids for a really long time since I was really young.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if my love of pets is rooted in that, but I think that it's probably not because there's a big like maybe it's like building responsibility like in that sense, like like preparing yourself for motherhood or whatever. But there's a significant difference between a child and a cat. Like you can have a cat for 5 years and it's never gonna say mom, So
Unless you're really high.
yeah, acid notwithstanding, it's never gonna say mom.
I asked that question too because one of my daughter's friends was telling her how bad she wanted a kid, and she's like, I'm just ready. I don't even care who's the father. And and but then she opted to get a puppy. so I was just wondering,
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely can't speak for all women by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd say that it's probably as often as men do the same thing because there's lots of men who want children too who don't have them.
Well, I think that pets, and I was trying to tell Jerry this one day, like I'm a big dog person, and what I love about dogs is just the unconditional love, no matter how bad your day is, no matter how big of an asshole you are, your dog is there. And especially during the pandemic, my dog and I have been glued at the hip since the pandemic. I think she's getting sick of me, and but so there's that companionship aspect that pets bring. So you should get a dog, Jerry.
Yeah, like the one on your
go
picture.
Ahead, Kara. Go ahead.
I was just saying you have a picture of a dog. You could get one just like that.
Well, interestingly enough, I had a dog as a kid that looked like this little puppy here, and it was a beagle, and the owner threw her out of the car in the mall, and this woman, took the dog and knew my mom. I don't know if they ran into each other at the mall. I was pretty young at the time. I was probably about 10. Anyway, long story short, we took the dog from this lady, and my dad named the dog Midge after the lady, which she really appreciated. But that dog was the coolest freaking dog ever because she was people. People always say, "Oh, my dog's so smart. He's like a people." My dog, would go into the woods, kill birds and eat them, kill rabbits and eat them. I mean, we fed her and we were cool to her, but she was the coolest dog and was her own person. The only thing she did wrong in life, and it wasn't even wrong, it was just something that we could never correct, was she hated the fucking UPS guy. And she was the only thing she chased was the UPS truck, and she would hear it coming, a big brown truck or whatever. I don't know if she knew the sound of the engine, but we'd be sitting in the house and she could hear it, and she'd want to go outside just to chase that guy around the street. And we would let her go. We didn't put her on, chain walker. We just, when she wanted to go, fortunately, we had woods off of our backyard. Mm-hmm. She would go in the woods sometimes for days and not come back. And again, I know I'm taking up way too much of my own time, but I wiped out on my bike one time delivering newspapers, and I cracked my skull and was knocked out for a half hour. And she stayed with me. I was in the hospital for a long time. I was already fucked up before then, so it didn't do anything worse to me. But she stayed with me the entire time and was by my side and kept licking my face. So I'd wake up and I finally staggered home. And then my parents found me and took me to the hospital. But she saved my life, and I'll always remember that dog is if I ever were to get a dog again, it would have to be some kind of chocolate lab or Midge. Anyway, that's why I got a picture of Midge.
So heartwarming.
Jerry had 11 siblings, and his parents didn't even know he was gone.
Yeah, no. I mean, I love my parents, but it goes they just kept having kids, and they were that Catholic, we don't have to think about anything because God will just somehow, the man in the sky will protect us. And they just kept having kids even after my mom's doctor was like, hey, maybe you ought to take some precautions and not have any more fucking kids. No.
So anyway, Kara, the name of the podcast is The Conquest of Bliss. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. Tell us about
it. So what do you want to know about it? What it's about?
Well, yeah, tell for the uninitiated.
Okay, so it started really so the audio quality in the beginning, terrible, which I'm sure you now know. But it started just kind of as a project of interest, a place to sort of, start fleshing out my ideas and have conversations about happiness and well-being. And now it's sort of grown to something of I like to think of it as an archive of tools and techniques and experiences. So sometimes I speak with experts, I just released one with a neuroscientist and an anthropologist the week before. So I speak with experts to sort of talk about the higher level of the tools and techniques, and then I like to speak with lay people like myself to sort of flesh out what that looks like in real life, including my own experiences, and sort of share vulnerability as well as help people to have access to some of the tools that took me a really, really long time to find. Like I've been on this journey for a good, decade and a quarter, since I got clean, I've been on this journey, and a lot of these tools are scattered all over the place and hard to find. And vulnerability is one of those tools that's really helpful for me. I don't know if that I did a good job explaining it or not.
You've got a pretty interesting backstory. Were you sent to the States to live
Oh,
with another
yeah.
family to clean up, or what? And so is this where your experience and you're from that experience, is this where the idea for the podcast kind of comes, if not
Um,
consciously and unconsciously?
I mean, that's definitely like related for sure, like to my, issues with fears of abandonment. So yeah, I got sent to the States, Missouri specifically, to live with what turned out to be a lovely family. But at the time, we didn't know that. They were just people my parents knew on the internet, and they just sent me there. It's kind of complicated and convoluted. They did the best they could with what they knew.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, definitely fears of abandonment and stuff stemmed from that. And then I was addicted to crack when I was like 16, 17, and went to rehab when I was 18. And that's where I started learning a lot of the life skills and started doing therapy and stuff like that. So it kind of was a combination of things like, oh, like when I was 17, I tried to commit suicide and I was in the hospital for that. There's a whole bunch of big traumatic events that all sort of led me to I either have to do something or I'm going to die. And then eventually through that process led me to, oh my God, I need to share this.
Mhm.
Right on.
Well, you had your father on an episode, and that was a
Hmm.
really cool episode because uh, you didn't really talk to him I mean, you did, but it wasn't like, hey, I've got my dad on the show. It got the talk kind of got like down and dirty.
Yeah, and a little heated. There's a lot of heavy sighs in that episode and a lot of and talking over each other on both ends. And yeah, I mean, my family and I have all sort of grown together in spite of all the traumas. I mean, not like trauma bonding because some of the traumas were caused by them, but um, as I've started to heal and started to deal with some of the difficulties, we've all started talking about deeper stuff like that.
Yeah. You mentioned therapy. Jerry, have you ever been in therapy?
Yeah.
What's your takeaway from the experience of therapy, Jerry?
I'm thinking. One, you know, the biggest part to me was the outcome. In other words, like, what the fuck do you want to have happen? Right? I mean, everyone's journey is different, but the commonalities at the root are usually the same. In terms of like the spectrum of life. So for me, I wanted someone to, I dragged my wife to it because it's important, like, to not lie to yourself. So then it's important to say, all right, here's what I'm going to fix, and then hold yourself to it. And, and make it important. And to me, that was like the value of having a therapist. Because I could read books and I can read, and I've read a ton of stuff about, just how to like change and modify your own behavior and attain your goals and shit like that. But I mean, for me, it was more about getting my wife to kind of look at herself. I mean, Kara, like, I got married and my wife was super cool. We had a lot of fun. Then once we started having kids, like, I felt like I got kicked to the curb.
Mm.
Like the kid was the new shiny penny, and I was just like the fucking asshole over there. And we've been through this, and it's all good. But like, her parents came, and her mother was like our nanny, and she was like in my fucking house all the time. And I love her, but I don't want her in my house all the time. So it's all these
Yeah.
things that I needed other people to help me with, that were just driving me insane. And I started like getting angry over things that back in the day would just go right by me and like, So anyway, I took a long time to explain it, but there's shit you do wrong that you have to change. And if you don't know, that's where therapists can help you figure out, like, hey, you're being the asshole here, or here's where you're letting yourself down. You know what I mean? So depending on what's going on for each person, one is the desire to say, I don't like the way my life's going. And two, what the fuck am I going to do about it? You know, and then you can just kind of customize your own little plan for yourself. But again, sitting with people, I mean, I went to AA meetings because I was drinking a lot, but I still wouldn't call myself an alcoholic because I would never, I wasn't like every day I have to drink. But if it's Friday and I know I don't have to work till Monday, I might fucking binge drink all weekend.
Oh, no.
That kind of shit.
Yeah.
So
did therapy help you, Kara? What'd you get out of it? I mean,
I've gotten a lot out of therapy. There's different kinds of therapy that I've done. Basic talk therapy, has helped me to sort of explore. I think the biggest thing for me that talk therapy has value in is learning how to explore other perceptions because there's always like, a half a dozen to 100 ways to look at any given interpersonal situation or personal situation.
right.
And some are more helpful than others. Some are, are things that you can't control. So changing the way you view it is the only thing you can do to help yourself accept it, stuff like that. And so I find talk therapy really, really helpful in that. And then there's other kinds of therapy like DBT and stuff, which are more skills based, and they teach you skills that you can use to apply in your life. And so the value in therapy for me is having someone who knows the stuff to work through it with you in your personal situation.
Yeah, I'm 53. I went to therapy for the first time in my life when I was 50, and I went for a while. Then I changed therapists, and I really like the experience. I don't know if it ultimately helped me or not because I ran into two problems. Both therapists, the first couple sessions I find really helpful, but then I start feeling like I like the therapist, like I build a relationship with them. Then I start hiding shit from them because I don't want them to be disappointed in me. I don't want them to not like me anymore. So, like, my first therapist was this great, smart woman, but she was like an older aunt that I wanted to go to dinner with. And so I kept things from her because I didn't want her to be disappointed in me. And same thing with the second one, who was far younger than me, but she really challenged me. But I thought she was cool, and I'm like, well, I can't tell her this because then she'll think I'm a scumbag, So the other thing was you're eventually led to a place that I think, well, at least I'll say in my own case, 'cause I don't want to speak for you guys, that I kind of already knew. Like they'll lead you, they won't tell you what to do, but they'll lead you to answers that I thought like, well, shit, I kind of knew this on my own.
Yep.
And it comes down to you just having the courage to actually making the change.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think I'm a masochist in some way. Sometimes I don't want to make the change. I'd rather be miserable. And I don't know. It's an issue when I was listening to your podcast, Kara, that I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up therapy. So I was curious to find out what you guys got out of it. Anyway.
And if I may, like that's really interesting, and I think that that's a really, really good point about wanting to hide things. I think we all do that. Like practicing vulnerability is really, really hard. But like one of the things that's helpful for me in that, and I know you didn't ask for this, but I'm gonna tell you anyways. One of the things that's really helpful for me in it is if there's something that I want to hide, I try my hardest to immediately tell someone because then it's out and it can get out. So now I have no choice but to be vulnerable. Like I corner myself. Like constantly play games with myself where I corner myself and like, now you have to do it, bitch. And oh, sorry, I don't know if you're allowed to swear on this podcast. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
Jerry dropped like 5 F-bombs.
Every other word.
Okay. But so that's the strategy I have because otherwise, like, I don't know how to gently coax myself into honesty when it's hard. And when I say honesty, I mean, obviously you can be honest without telling someone everything, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, as we bring this home, Kara, I listened to the Sextra episode.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I listened to that, because it said Sextra, and I was like, oh, sex. So, but I got into it, and I was listening to it, and Nicole Hodges was interesting.
She's fantastic.
She gives men bubble baths, which was kind of weird and cool. And if she ever does that again, I'm game. But she brought up a term called compassionate disagreement, and I disagreed with a lot of what she was saying. And as it pertained to men, and we'd love to have you and her back for an episode on men.
I will message her and see if she's into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jerry, yeah, if down the line, if we can do that, that'd be cool. But Jerry, we probably should bring it home. I think Kara's the smartest guy in the room today because
by far.
She got the fuck out of Missouri and went back to Canada.
Well, and my last question for you was, have you or do you on a regular basis get on a kayak and like swim around with like killer whales and shit?
I wouldn't say on a regular basis or anything, but I've maybe not killer whales, but I've gone kayaking and I live right beside the ocean. Like if I look outside my door, it's ocean.
So I mean, that's one of my, I guess people call it bucket list, but I just call it my weird fantasies because it has nothing to do with like sex or any of those things. But I've gone in a shark cage off the Farallon Islands and we didn't see any sharks, so it kind of pissed me off. But my other want is to go to Vancouver Island, get in a kayak, and like see some killer whales. Like they always show in the commercials. You know what I mean?
It's actually totally doable. I know lots of people who have done that. I haven't. Like I said, I've kayaked more in lakes because the ocean terrifies me.
Right on. Well, I understand that. All right, so I have two quotes because I didn't want to lean too far against dogs or cats or whatever.
Hey Jerry, can I clear something up?
Oh yeah, go for it.
The bubble bath part, I did not mean that in a creepy sexual way. I thought
I took it that way.
I didn't mean it that way. That's why I want to clear it up. The whole idea of Nicole like talking to me and as like it almost sounded like therapy in a way.
It's interviews about masculinity.
Right. Yes. It just sounded like such a weird but cool way to be interviewed or to talk about some type of societal ill while you're in the bathtub. Not together. I assume I'm just the only one in the bathtub, but it just sounded so kind of cool and I don't know, interesting. And I was like, that's just it's brilliant. It's innovative. So that's what I meant by it. I didn't want to mean not a creepy.
Well, I would have rather left the mystery of you just being creepy, to be honest with you.
I don't want.
I've only known you for 50 years, and
I'm not creepy. I'm not creepy, man.
All right, so here we go. We're gonna wrap it up. Carol, you've been awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, here's a fun quote. Dogs look up to us. Cats look down at us. Pigs look at us as equals. You want to guess who said that? It wasn't a Canadian or an American.
Was it Orson Welles?
Dirty British. No, Winston Churchill. Good catch or guess though. And here's one that maybe you'll like, and it has a therapy twist to it. Time spent with cats is never wasted time.
Oh.
Sigmund Freud. There you go.
That's awesome.
Wow.
All right, folks. Great chat. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, all right?
You too.
Bye, Kara.
Kara.
Bye.
Bye.